The manhwa opens with someone desperately calling out Ricardo's name, urging him to wake up. Nearby, a little girl trembles in fear as she tells Ricardo that they need to run immediately. At the same moment, a shadowy figure slowly approaches them while gripping a knife. The girl begins panting heavily, her mind overwhelmed with terror as she wonders how everything could have turned out this way. All she had ever wanted was to spend a happy birthday with her family. 10 years earlier, within the prestigious Arachne estate, a tense atmosphere fills the room as a doctor delivers tragic news to the family. He explains that the Duke's daughter-in-law has passed away during childbirth. However, the situation becomes even more shocking when he reveals that the newborn baby possesses no detectable mana whatsoever. The announcement instantly enrages the head of House Arachne, Archmond. Throughout generations, the family had been renowned for its overwhelming magical power. Archmond himself possesses extraordinary abilities, as does his son, Lord Fernor, along with the Duke's 3 grandsons. Even many distant relatives of the family are born with exceptional powers, yet the youngest child of the family, Ri, is born as the sole exception. Because of this, Ri grows up isolated within the castle's outer annex. From the very beginning, she experiences a lonely and loveless childhood. Deep inside, she constantly wonders whether her father hates her, especially since he never comes to see her no matter how hard she tries to earn her family's affection. One day, Ri gathers enough courage to approach her grandfather. She proudly brings him a drawing she made herself and hopes that perhaps she will finally be allowed to have dinner with the family that night. Instead of warmth, she is met with fury. Her grandfather harshly scolds her for wandering around the castle and reminds her that she was forbidden from leaving the annex. His cold rejection immediately brings tears to her eyes. Although Ri apologizes sincerely, she once again receives nothing but her family's icy indifference. Back in her room, she quietly cries to herself, convinced that everyone hates her because she is useless. Meanwhile, whispers continue spreading throughout the estate. Servants gossip about how Ri secretly entered the main castle again and was punished for angering the Duke. Others mock the fact that her powers still have not awakened. Rumors begin circulating that House Arachne's once powerful bloodline is weakening because of her existence. Some even claim that the girl has brought a curse upon the family. Hearing these cruel words slowly destroys Ri from within. She begins wondering whether her family truly despises her because she is cursed. What hurts her the most is the fact that her father has never visited her even once. As tears well in her eyes, Ri remembers that today is actually her 10th birthday. Alone in the cold annex, she feels both hungry and miserable. She imagines the rest of the family happily eating dinner together inside the grand castle, while she remains forgotten. More than anything else, she simply wanted to celebrate her birthday together with her family, but her hopes once again prove meaningless. Suddenly, when she opens her eyes, confusion washes over her face. She looks around in shock as flames surround the estate. Fire spreads rapidly through the mansion, and the entire house is burning. Ri desperately tries to escape her room, but flames surround her from every direction. Fire spreads wildly throughout the mansion, leaving no visible path to safety. Panic fills her heart as she looks around in confusion, calling out for anyone nearby to help her. However, no response comes. The terrifying silence makes her wonder whether everyone had already escaped without her. Lost and frightened, she has no idea what she is supposed to do next. Suddenly, someone grabs her hand tightly and angrily calls her an idiot for still remaining there. Startled, Ri turns around and realizes that it is Ricardo. Relief instantly floods her eyes. Ricardo urgently asks her why she has not run away yet. Ri explains that the moment she saw the fire, she immediately left her room, but when she came outside, nobody was there. Hearing this causes Ricardo to grit his teeth in frustration. The realization that the mansion is burning, while no one even bothered to retrieve her, clearly infuriates him. He quickly tells Ri to listen carefully. The Imperial Army has invaded House Arachne, and their grandfather is currently trying to buy time so the remaining family members can escape. However, Ricardo admits that he does not know how much longer the Duke will be able to hold them off. Confused and terrified, Ri asks why the Imperial family would suddenly attack their house. Ricardo explains that someone within their own family must have betrayed them. Still, he insists that there is no time to explain everything right now, because escaping comes first. Soon, the two of them are running desperately through the forest, trying to flee from the destruction behind them. While they are escaping, someone suddenly calls out to Ricardo. The newcomer turns out to be the Duke's personal right-hand man. He approaches Ricardo with visible relief and says that he is thankful Ricardo is safe because he has been searching for him everywhere. Ricardo expresses relief at seeing the man alive as well. He then asks him to take Ri somewhere safe and hide with her, while he returns to help their grandfather fight. Ri immediately becomes anxious and asks Ricardo whether he is not coming with her. She worries about him getting hurt during the battle. Ricardo gently reassures her, confidently saying that he is far too strong to get injured. He tells her not to worry, and promises that once everything settles down, he will return to find her. Confused by his kindness, Ri asks him why he would even come back for her. Ricardo simply replies that the answer should be obvious because they are family. The word family deeply shakes Ri's heart. Tears gather in her eyes as she silently wonders whether she even has the right to call herself part of their family. Unlike everyone else in House Arachne, she possesses no powers at all. In her mind, she has done nothing except disgrace the family name. She believes herself to be nothing more than a cursed child. At that exact moment, everything changes. Without warning, the Duke's right-hand man suddenly stabs Ricardo from behind. Ri's eyes widen in complete horror as Ricardo collapses forward in shock. Bleeding heavily, Ricardo turns toward the man and demands to know why he betrayed them. The man apologizes coldly, asking for forgiveness, while Ricardo urgently tells Ri to run away immediately. He realizes too late that Oberon is actually the traitor. Ri, unable to process the situation, asks Oberon why he is doing this. She cannot understand how the family's loyal servant could betray them. Oberon coldly explains that everything happened because Ri's powers never awakened. According to him, her curse brought ruin upon House Arachne. He tells her to look around at the destruction surrounding them and claims that all of it happened because the family tried to protect someone too weak to awaken her abilities. He continues shouting at her, demanding to know whether she has any idea what her father sacrificed for her sake. He asks whether she understands how much suffering the family endured because of her existence. Trembling in fear and disbelief, Ri quietly asks if he is saying that everything is her fault. Oberon mercilessly confirms it. He declares that it is already too late for her to fix anything, because House Arachne no longer exists. The moment his words end, he suddenly slashes at her as well. Everything instantly goes dark. Then, all at once, Ri's eyes snap open. She gasps loudly and hurriedly checks her body, remembering the sword piercing through her. However, there is no pain. She is completely unharmed. Confusion overwhelms her as she realizes there are no injuries anywhere on her body. At first she wonders whether everything she experienced was merely a nightmare. But the moment she looks at her small hands, her expression freezes in shock. This cannot be possible. Ri realizes that she has somehow returned to the past. Someone knocks on the door. It is the maids. They enter the room while calling out to Ri, saying that it is time for her to wake up and asking whether she is still asleep. However, they quickly notice that she is already awake. They place the breakfast down before telling her that they are going out today, so she should not wander around and cause any trouble. Ri quietly stares at them, while memories begin resurfacing in her mind. If she recalls correctly, these maids are the same ones who are later kicked out for stealing from the castle when she is still little. Her gaze then falls onto the breakfast. It is peanut bread. She cannot even eat peanuts, so she decides that she will simply pick them out. Then another thought suddenly crosses her mind. Around this exact time in the past, she becomes terribly sick after eating peanut bread. Everything is exactly as she remembers. If she truly has traveled back in time, then her family will fall to ruin again on her 10th birthday. Throughout her entire life, everyone in her family ignores her. Even her own father never visits her even once. Because of that, she believes she is destined to remain alone forever. Yet Ricardo is different. Ricardo is the only one who tells her that they are family. Ricardo tells her that she is his family. This time, she wants to protect everyone because they are her family. However, she cannot help wondering what exactly she is even capable of doing. How can she possibly protect her family? Suddenly, an idea comes to her mind. She decides that she will leave the castle. If she leaves, then Oberon will not betray the family. He always hates her, so once she is gone, she is certain he will no longer betray the house. But before leaving, she needs money in order to survive outside the castle. Because of that, she decides to take anything she can possibly sell. After packing everything she can carry, she finally steps outside while thinking that the items are unbelievably heavy. She realizes that she really has become smaller again. Still, she forces herself forward. There is supposedly a village right outside the forest, so she only needs to endure a little longer. However, as she continues moving, items begin falling out from her poorly packed bag one after another. Somewhere nearby, someone picks up the bracelet she dropped and thinks that, thankfully, it merely looks like she is going for a walk. Even so, that forest feels strange. Meanwhile, Ri continues venturing deeper into the forest while desperately trying to stay calm. She begins wondering whether she is lost. Even so, she repeatedly tells herself that she is not scared, not even a little. Before, whenever she is afraid, Ricardo is always beside her. But this time, she has to do it alone. After all, she is already 10 years old. Suddenly, something drips onto her head. At first, she wonders whether it has started raining. Then she slowly looks up. A massive monster towers over her while growling menacingly. Ri instantly realizes that it is a monster. The creature lunges toward her and swings its fist. The impact sends her tumbling onto the ground. Trembling violently, she begs the monster to go away while desperately crying out for help. Without realizing it, she calls out for Ricardo. At the same time, Ricardo stands near the annex while wondering why it is so quiet. He cannot believe that this is truly the place where his little sister lives. One of the maids hurriedly kneels before him while asking what brings him all the way there. Ricardo immediately demands to know where Ri is. The maids casually explain that they have not seen her since this morning. Perhaps she is hiding somewhere again. They insist that she must simply be seeking attention because she has always behaved that way. Those words immediately make Ricardo frown. He coldly realizes that they have all been lying to him this entire time. Did they truly think he would never notice how horribly Ri is treated here? The maid becomes startled by his reaction and silently wonders what has suddenly gotten into him. After all, he is usually the first person to throw Ri out whenever she sneaks into the main castle. Just then, someone suddenly rushes over while calling out to Ricardo. They urgently report that traces of Ri have been found. Part of her bracelet is discovered on the ground near the forest of magic beasts. The moment Ricardo hears those words, his expression changes completely. Even the maids become horrified at the mention of the forest of magic beasts. Without wasting another second, Ricardo immediately starts running while cursing under his breath. Meanwhile, Ri desperately continues running away from the monster. Terror completely overwhelms her, as she thinks that she does not want to die. She cannot help wondering why she wakes up in the past, if she is only going to die like this again. All she wants is to protect her family. Suddenly, blazing flames erupt around the monster. The creature roars in pain. The moment Ri sees the flames, she instantly believes that Ricardo has come to save her once again, just like before. Ricardo immediately grabs her while demanding to know what she is doing in a place like this. He angrily reminds her that this is the forest of magic beasts, and questions whether she even understands how dangerous it is. However, the monster suddenly rises again and charges toward them once more. Ricardo immediately notices it and realizes that the creature is somehow still alive. Ri hurriedly warns him to be careful. He orders her to run away immediately. Ri hesitates, wondering what will happen to him if she leaves. But Ricardo continues telling her to run because the monster is already trying to attack him again. As Ri watches the terrifying scene unfold before her eyes, fear suddenly grips her heart. No, Ricardo might die again. That thought alone completely shatters her composure. Unable to endure it any longer, she rushes forward and tightly hugs him, while desperately thinking that she cannot lose him again. At that exact moment, tiny bubbles suddenly begin surrounding the monster. The strange bubbles rapidly wrap around the creature before violently forcing it to collapse onto the ground. Ricardo immediately turns toward Ri in shock. Only then does he notice the countless small bubbles floating around her. A stunned realization crosses his mind. Ri has awakened her powers. Ri stares at her hand for a long while, her eyes trembling slightly as realization slowly settles into her mind. A faint sheen of tears gathers in her eyes before she suddenly throws herself forward and hugs Ricardo tightly. Relief completely overwhelms her, and she clings to him as though confirming that he is truly alive and standing before her. Ricardo immediately protests loudly, telling her to stop clinging to him because she is getting her snot all over his clothes. Even while complaining, however, there is no real harshness in his voice. Ri, still emotional, tells him how glad she is that he is not dead. Ricardo gently pats her head and assures her that of course he would not die because he is strong. His confident words immediately calm her heart. Ri smiles faintly as she thinks that he is right. Ricardo truly is strong. She then quietly thanks him once more for coming to save her again. The exhaustion that has been weighing on her body finally overtakes her, and moments later she falls asleep. Ricardo looks down at her sleeping form in confusion, silently wondering what she means by again. At that exact moment, another figure suddenly collapses forward from nearby and remarks that Rai has finally awakened her powers. The newcomer calmly states that it is now time for him to escort her back. Ricardo immediately recognizes the man and calls out Rosinante's name in disbelief, questioning when exactly he arrived there. Rosinante casually replies that he merely happened to be passing by. Ricardo instantly rejects the obvious lie. He tells Rosinante that he already knows something was suspicious from the moment he heard about the bracelet being found. Ricardo explains that Rosinante must have been watching Rai from the very beginning, ever since she entered the forest, because of his ability to see and hear everything that exists within the range of his magic. Rosinante simply smiles at the accusation and admits that he will not deny it. He explains that they saw Rai entering the dangerous forest alone, so he deliberately placed the bracelet somewhere it could easily be discovered. Ricardo irritably points out that Rosinante could have rescued Rai himself, instead of going through all that trouble. Rosinante calmly reminds him that Ricardo already knows the reason. Since the lord of the house has been demoted, Rosinante is no longer allowed to interfere with anything connected to this household. However, now that Ri's power has awakened, those restrictions will soon be lifted. Those words only make Ricardo glare at him even harder. He accuses Rosinante of using him so that he would not have to save Ro personally. Rosinante lightly denies the accusation and explains that he was worried about Rai as well. After all, Ricardo himself secretly sneaked out into the forest because he was worried about her too. Ricardo immediately turns his face away, refusing to answer directly. Instead, he mutters that they should simply get rid of the venomous creatures living in the forest, because the servants have become far too arrogant lately. Rosinante agrees without hesitation. He then comments that they should return now, because there is much work waiting for them. According to him, it is finally time to set everything straight. Sometime later, Rai slowly opens her eyes. Confusion fills her expression as she wonders where she is. A gentle voice nearby informs her that she is finally awake. Ri turns toward the unfamiliar speaker and asks who she is. A young girl immediately steps forward and formally introduces herself as Sona. She explains that from now on, she will serve as Ri's personal guard. Ri softly repeats her name in confusion, accidentally calling her Sonia instead. Sona quickly assures her that it is perfectly fine, and tells Rai that she may call her anything she likes. Hearing such a warm response immediately makes Rai think that Sona is an incredibly kind person. Sona then informs her that she has actually been unconscious for 2 entire days. She gently asks whether Rai remembers anything that happened when her powers awakened. Ri quietly admits that she does not remember much at all. Sona calmly explains that such a reaction is normal. When a person's powers awaken, the body experiences an intense shock. She further reveals that she herself is a distant relative of this house, so she has gone through a similar experience before. As Rai slowly drinks the water handed to her, countless thoughts begin running through her mind. She wonders if her powers truly awakened, yet she cannot even remember how she used them in the first place. Then another thought suddenly strikes her. Ricardo. Anxiously, she asks whether her brother is safe. Sona reassures her that Ricardo is completely unharmed. She explains that he returned safely from the forest, together with both her and Rosinante. Ri quietly questions who Rosinante is, still unfamiliar with many of the people surrounding her. Sona calmly explains that Rosinante is Lord Fernor's right-hand man. She further reveals that he was officially reinstated only yesterday. Now that Ri's powers have finally awakened, the restrictions placed upon the household are beginning to disappear. Sona also explains that the Lord himself will soon be returning home from the border. Those words instantly make Rai freeze in surprise. Her father is coming home. A wave of emotions rushes through her heart all at once. For so long, she believed that her father avoided her because he hated her, yet now she realizes that he had actually been living away from the castle this entire time. The thought that she will finally be able to meet her father causes a quiet excitement to bloom inside her chest. Sona notices the expression on Rai's face and silently thinks that Rai must have desperately wanted to see her father for a very long time. Before Rai can think further, a loud rumbling sound suddenly comes from her stomach. Sona immediately smiles warmly and remarks that she must be hungry. She explains that she already asked the servants to prepare food for her. Once Rai recovers her strength, His Grace will come to see her. Ri immediately wonders whether Sona is referring to her grandfather. The thought makes her expression dim slightly, because she believes that her grandfather hates her. Sona quickly denies that idea. She gently explains that the situation is far too complicated for Rai to fully understand right now, but she assures her that everything will be all right from now on. Just then, a maid knocks on the door and announces that Rai's meal has arrived. The maids enter the room with bright, excited expressions. One of them enthusiastically introduces herself to Rai and explains that they will now be serving her personally from this point onward. She also reassures Rai that the maids from the annex will no longer come near her, so she does not need to worry anymore. The servants eagerly encourage Rai to eat, pointing out all the dishes that were prepared for her. They even mention that pudding has been included for dessert. The moment Ri hears the word pudding, her eyes brighten immediately because it is her favorite dessert. She slowly begins eating her meal, while quietly observing the people around her. Back in the annex, she had always been afraid of the maids there, but every servant in this place is so gentle and kind toward her. Even so, a lingering fear still remains deep inside her heart. She wonders whether it is truly acceptable for her to feel this happy. After all, she is supposed to be the cursed child who destroyed this household. Because of that belief, Rai cannot stop herself from worrying that this happiness may not last forever. Sometime later, the scene shifts to the maids carefully preparing Rai so she can properly meet the family members of the main house. They excitedly fix her clothes and hair while admiring how adorable she looks. When they finally finish, Rai timidly asks how she looks. The maids immediately burst into praise, telling her that she looks absolutely adorable and resembles a little angel. One maid even comments that she cannot believe such an innocent child was born into this family. The moment those words leave her mouth, Sona immediately scolds the maid and warns her to watch what she says in front of Rai. She questions whether the maid has completely forgotten her manners. The embarrassed maid instantly apologizes. Ri softly says that it is all right, but Sona firmly tells her that she should not allow people to say whatever they want around her. Ri can only smile awkwardly while assuring everyone that she truly does not mind. Sona then changes the subject and asks whether Ri still remembers everything they practiced together earlier. Ri nods obediently and demonstrates what she learned. She carefully grabs the sides of her skirt before performing a polite bow exactly the way she was taught. The sight is so unbelievably cute that everyone in the room cannot help smiling warmly at her. Sona praises her performance and tells Rai that she did an excellent job. She confidently assures her that her grandfather will definitely be proud of her. However, Sona then mentions that it seems Rai will have to continue from there without her. Ri immediately notices that detail and quietly asks whether Sona is not coming with her. Before Sona can properly answer, the large gate ahead slowly begins to open. Sona gently announces that he has arrived. Ri looks confused and asks who she means. The moment she peeks through the opening gate, her eyes widen in surprise. A man slowly steps forward with an elegant and composed presence surrounding him. He politely introduces himself and tells Rai that it is a pleasure to meet her. The man standing before her is Oberon. He tells Ri that he will escort her to his grace. As she walks beside him, her thoughts become restless. In all the memories she carries from her previous life, Oberon has always been a loyal servant of this house. He has never once shown signs of betrayal. Because of that, she cannot understand when he could have possibly begun planning to betray them. As if sensing the tension within her, Oberon suddenly turns toward her and asks whether there is something she wishes to say to him. The unexpected question makes her panic. Remembering the advice Sona carefully drilled into her, she chooses her words one by one and tells him that she thinks he is amazing. She explains that he has devoted his entire life to serving this household for such a long time, which must mean that this place is incredibly important to him. Oberon calmly replies that the estate is like a home to him. His answer causes Ri's thoughts to waver again. Perhaps Oberon has not truly decided to betray the family after all. Unsure of what to believe, she wonders if she should try to probe him further and learn what he is truly thinking. She carefully tells him that her power has finally awakened. Oberon replies that he has already heard the news and offers his congratulations. Ri continues by saying that this means her father will return home soon, and once he does, the house will finally be safe again. She adds that the things he fears will no longer happen. For a brief moment, Oberon appears as though he wishes to say something in response. However, before he can ask her anything specific, Ri hurriedly points out that they have already arrived. She says they should go inside quickly because she cannot wait any longer to see her grandfather. In truth, she simply cannot allow him the chance to question her further. Oberon enters the room first and informs the head of the family that he has escorted Ri safely there. Her grandfather slowly turns his gaze toward her. Ri approaches him and respectfully greets him, but in her nervousness, she suddenly trips and falls flat onto her face. After all the time she spent practicing with Sona, this humiliating accident is the result she ends up with. Her grandfather tells her that formalities are unnecessary and immediately asks her to show him her power. His words catch her completely off guard. Right here and right now? Even so, she nervously raises her hands. She desperately focuses her thoughts on bubbles, trying with all her might to make them appear. She silently begs for them to come out, but nothing happens. The room falls into complete silence. After waiting for a moment, her grandfather quietly says that it does not matter. He admits that he should not have raised his expectations so high in the first place. He then orders her to leave and instructs Oberon to escort her back to her room. Oberon gently grabs her hand and tells her that they should go. At that moment, panic surges through Ri's heart. If her grandfather fails to acknowledge her now, then she will lose her family all over again, just as she did in her previous life. Desperately pulling her hand free, she tells Oberon to wait, because she can do it this time. Tears gather in her eyes as she struggles with all her strength. Then, at last, bubbles begin floating around her. Crying openly now, she begs her grandfather to give her one more chance. Even the head of the family looks visibly stunned as he stares at the countless bubbles surrounding her. One of the bubbles suddenly drifts toward Oberon before softly popping against him. The instant it bursts, he notices that the mana around the spot where it touched completely disappears. These are not ordinary bubbles. It appears that they possess the ability to neutralize mana itself. Her grandfather questions whether this strange ability is truly her power. Ree quietly answers that it is. At the same time, fear fills her mind. She worries that he will call the power useless and scold her for disappointing him. Instead, her grandfather calmly remarks that she simply seems unable to control the ability properly yet. He states that he will find a suitable teacher to help her master it. After saying this, he tells her that she may leave. Relief immediately washes over her, and she gratefully thanks her grandfather before leaving the room. Once she is gone, the head of the family turns toward Oberon and asks whether he saw her power clearly as well. Oberon replies that he did. He admits that the ability is far stronger than he expected, and says that he is worried it could eventually harm Ree herself. The head of the family then reveals a secret that has been hidden for a very long time. Long ago, the temple received an oracle, declaring that the unawakened Saver bloodline would one day become the plague at the heart of the empire. Because of that prophecy, the imperial family has constantly kept watch over their household. When Rai was born with weak mana, the imperial family claimed it was proof that the prophecy was beginning to come true. They demanded that the child be handed over to them. However, he could not bring himself to surrender her. Instead, he sent his own son to the border in order to buy time until Ree's powers awakened. Oberon tells him not to blame himself because Lord Fëanor willingly chose to leave for Ree's sake. The head of the family lowers his gaze as he speaks again. He says that Ree's mother died while giving birth to her, yet despite everything, his son still loves his daughter deeply. He continues by explaining that their house is no longer as powerful as it once was. Both the imperial family and their distant relatives constantly search for opportunities to prey upon them. Their current situation is already dangerously unstable, yet now they have learned that Ree's power is even stronger than expected. Because of this, he orders Oberon to keep a close watch on her at all times. Meanwhile, far away from the estate, Ree's father receives a letter. As he reads its contents, a relieved thought crosses his mind. Finally, some good news, and he can't wait to see how much she has grown up. The following day, Rosinante approaches Ree and informs her that he will personally oversee her education until an official tutor is assigned to her. Ree already knows this, as Yessen had explained that Rosinante serves as her father's right-hand man. Rosinante confirms this and remarks that he has more than enough free time until the Lord returns, adding that it is an honor to teach her. Deciding to begin with something simple, he presents her with a book titled A Beginner's Guide to Magic. He then asks whether she knows how to read, and Ree replies that she can read a little. Rosinante finds this surprising, because children her age are usually unable to read so well. Wondering whether she had been taught before, he asks if she previously had a teacher, but Ree explains that she mostly taught herself by looking through picture books in the annex. One particular book introduced letters in simple steps, allowing her to learn quickly on her own. Rosinante is genuinely impressed that she managed to educate herself this far without proper guidance. He then begins explaining the abilities possessed by the members of their household. On average, the powers of direct descendants awaken at birth, while distant relatives usually awaken between the ages of 4 and 7. Although Ree's powers awaken slightly later than expected, he assures her that everything turned out fine and that she has no reason to worry. Ree then asks whether there are cases where powers never awaken at all. Rosinante replies that he has never heard of such a thing and questions why she is curious about it. Ree merely says that she was wondering. Deep inside, however, she finds it strange because in her previous life, her powers never awakened, yet this time they have. She wonders how things changed and what role she can now fulfill for this family. More than anything, she is determined to protect her family this time no matter what happens. Once the lesson concludes, Rosinante says that they have done enough for the day and praises her for her hard work, telling her she may spend the rest of her time however she wishes. Ree politely bows and thanks him for the lesson before leaving. As she walks away, Rosinante reflects on how intelligent she is. Her comprehension is exceptionally high, and the questions she asks are far beyond what is expected for a child her age. He finds it unfortunate that she never received proper tutoring earlier. Still, something about her situation feels strange to him, because he is certain that the annex she lived in never contained children's books in the first place. Later, Ri spends her time in the library searching through records about the house, old data, prophecies, and information regarding distant relatives. She does not care what kind of clue she finds, as long as it helps her uncover the reason this household falls into ruin in the future. In her previous life, she knew absolutely nothing, but now that her powers have awakened, she believes she might finally have a chance to change fate itself. Suddenly, several boys from the distant branch of the family enter the library and begin mocking her, referring to her as the cursed child. They sneer that she could not even inherit her family's blood properly, and point out that one of them possesses hair far more silver than hers. They also warn one another not to get too close to her, or they might become cursed as well. In the past, Ri would have shrunk away from them in fear, but this time she refuses to remain silent. She angrily shouts that they must stop speaking about her that way because she is a proper member of the family now. The boys become irritated by her sudden confidence and mockingly comment that she has grown cocky simply because her powers awakened. Deciding to test her, they use magical roots to restrain her. Rai cries out in pain and demands that they let her go, but they only laugh and tell her to free herself with her own powers if she truly belongs in the family. One of them arrogantly mentions the supposedly mighty arachne power. Moments later, however, the other boy suddenly notices something crawling on his arm. Realizing it is an insect, he immediately panics and begins shouting in disgust while desperately trying to shake it off. Ri stares in confusion, unable to understand why they are suddenly reacting this way. At that moment, another person enters the library and coldly asks who is making so much noise, reminding them that silence must be maintained there. The newcomer is Riskel, the third son of Lord Ferner Riskel. The boys instantly grow nervous upon seeing him, and realize that the insects must have been an illusion created through his powers. Riskel casually snaps his fingers, causing the illusion to disappear entirely. He then orders the two boys to leave, unless they wish for him to teach them another lesson. Terrified, they quickly flee the library. Ri immediately calls out to Riskel and thanks him for helping her, but he bluntly states that he did not intervene for her sake and that she has no reason to thank him. He harshly adds that she should have remained hidden away in the annex where she belonged before walking away without another word. Ri quietly reflects that this reaction is exactly the same as in her previous life, since Riskel hated her back then as well. The scene later shifts to Riskel inside his bedroom when someone knocks on the door. Upon asking who it is, he discovers that the visitor is Ricardo. Ricardo mentions that he heard Riskel encountered Ri earlier and questions why he is pretending not to care about her. Riskel immediately insists that he has no interest in her at all. However, Ricardo notices the expression on his face and tells him that if he truly feels indifferent, then he should stop being so prideful and simply congratulate her. After all this time, Riskel has secretly been waiting for his little sister's powers to awaken. Under the starlit sky stood a castle, where a family blessed with radiant power lived in brilliance. Among them was a young boy whose light shone the faintest. One day, he hears a rumor that another star is soon going to descend from the heavens, and curiosity fills his heart. He asks his mother when the star will finally arrive, and she gently tells him that only 100 more nights remain before the star comes to them. Excited by the thought, the boy declares that he will read storybooks to the little star while waiting for its arrival. Every single day, he sits comfortably in his mother's arms and whispers softly toward the child growing within her womb. Though he often stumbles over difficult words while reading aloud, he still presses his ear against his mother's stomach with excitement, hoping the unborn child can hear him. His mother quietly watches him with a warm smile filled with affection. The boy becomes determined to study harder because he wants to become a good older brother once the star finally arrives. Day after day, he continues reading while waiting patiently for the small star. However, when the long-awaited child is finally born into the world, tragedy follows soon after. His mother returns to the sky, and the castle beneath the starlight falls silent. The once radiant family begins to scatter apart, leaving the boy alone as he spends countless hours staring silently out the window. After that day, he no longer looks up at the stars in the sky, because the star he waited for so desperately eventually becomes the person he hates most of all. In the present, Riskel scoffs bitterly as Ricardo asks whether he truly intends to congratulate Ri. Riskel coldly questions why he should congratulate a defective girl like her. Ricardo immediately tells him not to call her that, but Riskel insists that it is the truth. It took years for her powers to awaken, and he demands to know what else he is supposed to call her, after all the suffering their family endured because of her existence. Ricardo firmly tells him that enough is enough. Yet Riskel clenches his fist and bitterly mutters that it would have been better if she had never been born at all. At that very moment, Ri accidentally drops the book she is carrying, revealing that she has overheard everything. Both boys immediately notice her standing there. Ri quietly explains that Riskel seemed upset, so she came intending to apologize. She lowers her gaze and admits that she understands she is barely considered a proper member of the family. Her hair is not silver, and she still does not know how to properly use her powers, so it makes sense for him to hate her. Hearing those words causes Riskel's heart to tighten painfully. He clenches his fists harder and questions why she would say something like that. He angrily tells her to stop smiling in such a way because she should be crying or blaming him instead. By remaining calm, she only makes him feel like the villain. Riskel finally confesses that he hated her deeply because if she had never been born, their mother and father would still be there with them. Ricardo once again raises his voice at him, but Riskel continues speaking. He admits that he already knows none of it was truly her fault, and that realization only made him hate himself even more. He despised the fact that he hated his own little sister, despite her having done nothing wrong. As Ri listens quietly, she finally understands that Riskel's hatred does not come from her weakness. He must have been even younger than she is now when their mother died and their father was forced to leave the castle. He must have spent all those years lonely and frightened. It is only natural that he searched for someone to blame. Understanding this, Ri slowly reaches out and embraces him. She softly apologizes for arriving so late into his life and tells him that he must have been terribly lonely all this time. She says she understands because she once felt exactly the same way. Ri promises that she will never leave him alone again and vows to always remain by his side. Then she gently asks whether they can begin getting along as brother and sister from now on. Riskel's eyes fill with tears as he calls her a liar, insisting there is no way she could genuinely want a brother like him. Watching him cry helplessly like a child, Ri silently swears once more that she will change the future and save this family no matter what it takes. Sometime later, the atmosphere between them becomes far lighter as Ri asks Riskel whether he is the one who created the picture book she used in the annex. Riskel admits that he did make it because he could not allow his little sister to remain illiterate forever, so he secretly asked Ricardo to leave the book in her room. Ri is amazed that he created the entire thing himself and praises him sincerely. Riskel immediately grows prideful and insists that it was nothing special. Ri teasingly comments that this must explain why some of the letters looked crooked, causing him to loudly protest that he intentionally wrote them that way, to make them easier for her to read. Laughing softly, Ri explains that she was only joking before asking whether he would make another book for her someday. Riskel replies that he supposes he can if he finds the time, though he complains that making books requires a lot of effort. Suddenly, Sonia bursts into the room and urgently calls out for Ri. She explains that she has been searching everywhere for her. Ri apologizes and says she merely intended to stop by the library for a while. Sonia assures her that it is fine before anxiously asking whether she is all right, because she heard about the conflict involving the children from the distant branch families. Riskel immediately remarks that the fight was entirely one-sided since those boys had ganged up on Ri together. Sonia then reveals something troubling. She cannot believe those relatives actually had the nerve to request a hearing. Confused, Ricardo asks whether she means a disciplinary hearing. Sonia confirms this and explains that the distant relatives of the family have formally requested for Lady Ri to be summoned before a disciplinary hearing. At the meeting, one of the influential relatives slams his hand against the table and furiously declares that he can clearly see the child is bleeding. He reminds everyone that the children of the house are strictly forbidden from using their powers against one another and sharply questions the head of the family, asking whether he intends to cover up the matter simply because the girl in question is his own granddaughter. Another elder attempts to calm the growing uproar by telling Marquis to restrain himself, insisting that this is merely a conflict between children and that the facts should be properly verified before accusations are made. However, Marquis refuses to back down and continues shouting that this is precisely why a disciplinary hearing must be held immediately. The elders then turn toward the head of the family and ask for his opinion on the matter. Maintaining a composed expression, the head of the family announces that if the majority of the elders agree, he will comply with their decision. Marquis immediately raises his voice again, declaring that his branch of the family has always remained loyal to the main house. But if such matters are ignored, then how can the distant relatives ever trust that their own rights will be protected? One by one, several relatives begin voicing their agreement with him. The head of the family slowly rises to his feet and formally declares that a disciplinary hearing will indeed be held, and that no exception will be made even for his own granddaughter. Nevertheless, he emphasizes that she will still receive a fair trial. As the head of the family, he must preserve neutrality above all else. because balance within the house must always be maintained. If he fails to uphold that principle and blindly protects only the direct descendants of the main family, the distant relatives will eventually turn their backs on the house entirely. Without his son present to defend the authority of the main family, he is painfully aware that he currently resembles nothing more than a toothless tiger. Meanwhile, Marquis inwardly concludes that they must deal with that child before Lord Fëanor returns. Eventually, the disciplinary hearing begins. Marquis steps forward with his son, while Rhee also moves to the center of the hall. Rhee understands that the others are likely worried for her because Sona had explained earlier that only the summoned individual and a blood-related guardian are permitted to attend such hearings. It becomes obvious that they intentionally summoned Rhee alone in order to isolate her from the others. This realization leaves Riskel furious because he is actually the one who used his power first. Sona bitterly mutters that everything would have been different if only Lord Fëanor were present. Despite this, Rhee calmly reassures everyone that she will attend the hearing by herself because she has done nothing wrong and therefore has nothing to fear. She asks them not to worry about her, yet deep inside she still wonders whether her grandfather will truly believe her. As the hearing proceeds, Marquis suddenly points accusingly toward Rhee and loudly claims that she used her powers against his son. He alleges that she had proudly declared that her abilities had finally awakened and that she wanted to test them on him. According to his version of events, his son had merely been trying to run away when he accidentally fell and became injured. Unable to stay silent, Rhee immediately protests and insists that his son was actually the one who used his powers first. She begins trying to explain the truth behind the injury and how she had immediately stopped afterward, silently deciding not to reveal everything because she fears Riskel may end up in trouble if she speaks too honestly. Before she can finish her explanation, Marquis's son mockingly remarks that she cannot even complete her own sentence properly. Marquis then puts on a false expression of generosity and tells Rhee that if she simply offers a sincere apology, they will allow the matter to pass quietly. However, Rhee firmly refuses because she knows she has done nothing wrong. Marquis immediately twists her refusal into arrogance, loudly claiming that she refuses to apologize because she believes the distant relatives are beneath her. He urges everyone present to look carefully at the expression on her face and insists that this is not simple stubbornness, but the inevitable result of a direct descendant who has been spoiled by privilege all her life. He then goes even further by declaring that a mere apology is no longer sufficient and demands that Rhee be locked away in the annex once again. At that exact moment, the doors suddenly burst open and a man steps inside, announcing that although he arrived slightly late, he still wishes to attend the hearing. The moment everyone sees him, shocked murmurs spread throughout the hall because the newcomer is none other than the Duke's son and also Rhee's father. Many are stunned that he has returned so quickly from the border, while Rhee herself stares at him in disbelief, quietly wondering whether this man truly is her father. Without wasting time, her father calmly states that according to the rules of the house, both parties in a disciplinary hearing must be accompanied by a guardian. Yet Marquis, a grown man, is currently cornering a young child by himself while calling this proceeding fair. Marquis visibly falters, unable to hide his panic as he questions how Lord Fëanor managed to return so quickly. Ignoring him completely, Fëanor coldly clarifies that his daughter was never imprisoned in the annex, but was sent there supposedly for her own safety. He then points out another contradiction by stating that if Rhee truly used her powers, then Marquis's son should naturally know what her power actually is. He demands that the boy explain precisely what ability his daughter possesses. Instantly, Marquis's son begins stuttering in fear. Fëanor then turns his cold gaze toward Marquis and questions whether he truly dared to request a disciplinary hearing without even verifying the facts beforehand. Immediately afterward, he calls for Otto Rosinante. Rosinante steps forward carrying a thick stack of records and calmly reveals detailed reports documenting Rhee's life in the annex over the past 4 years. According to the records, the heating in the annex had repeatedly been cut off for days at a time, and Rhee was frequently denied proper meals, clothing, medicine, and even books. The revelation shocks the entire hall. Even the head of the family abruptly rises from his seat and angrily demands an explanation from Marquis, because the annex budget had always been under his authority. Marquis weakly attempts to defend himself by claiming that this is simply how the annex has always been managed. Fëanor immediately cuts through the excuse and asks whether Marquis truly expects everyone to believe that he knowingly left a direct descendant of the family to suffer in such horrific conditions. He then turns toward his father and formally declares that Marquis deliberately neglected a member of the direct bloodline, while also exploiting the disciplinary committee for his own personal gain. Therefore, he requests that Marquis himself be held accountable for his actions. After hearing everything, even the head of the family admits that Fëanor is correct. He solemnly announces that authority cannot remain in the hands of a man who caused such disorder within the house and deceived even the head of the family himself. As the head of the family, he hereby strips Marquis of his position as an elder. With that declaration, the disciplinary hearing finally comes to an end. Shortly afterward, Sona approaches Ri with visible relief and happily tells her that everything ultimately worked out. Just as Ri attempts to say something in return, Sona softly confirms that Lord Fëanor has indeed come back. Hearing this, Ri quietly calls out to her father in her mind, while anxiously wondering whether he secretly hates her, especially because he had been sent away to the border because of her existence. Yet all of those fears instantly shatter when Fëanor walks toward her and gently pulls her into his arms. Holding her tightly, he tenderly tells her that it has been far too long and that he missed her very much. Her father remarks that he wants to see how much Ri has grown, only to realize that she is not even standing nearby. Surprised, he asks when she wandered so far away and calls for her to come closer. Rosino quietly observes that Ri appears to be somewhat shy around him. Soon afterward, the scene shifts to Ri's room, where Sonia gently asks whether she feels uncomfortable around her father. Ri admits that she does. She explains that she has wanted to meet her father for such a long time, yet now that he is finally here, she cannot help feeling awkward around him. Sonia reassures her that such feelings are completely natural because she and her father have spent many years apart from one another. She explains that the awkwardness will fade once they spend more time together and slowly learn how to understand each other. Sonia then suggests that Ri make a gift for him, believing that if she puts her heart into it, he will surely treasure it. Ri hesitates and wonders whether a small gift would truly be enough, but Sonia warmly assures her that anything she personally makes will certainly mean a great deal to him. Meanwhile, the scene changes to the head of the family, who reflects sorrowfully on how he never realized that Ri had been forced to live in such terrible conditions. After his son departed, he became so consumed with protecting the family that he neglected his own granddaughter. Filled with regret, he apologizes to his son for failing as a grandfather. However, his son insists that the person deserving an apology is not him, but Ri herself. The head of the family then admits that he is exhausted and mentions that a crowning ceremony will soon be held on the Crown Prince's upcoming birthday. He believes it would serve as the perfect opportunity to reveal to the people of the capital that Fëanor has returned. Nevertheless, the current emperor deeply envies their family's power, and there is no way to predict how he might react if Fëanor attends. The head of the family warns that, in the worst possible scenario, the emperor may even suspect that they are plotting against the imperial family. Despite this danger, Fëanor insists that such concerns no longer matter. He believes that re-entering central politics is now essential, even if it risks creating misunderstandings. Some distant relatives have already begun secretly communicating with the imperial family, and before those relatives can betray them, they must prove that House Poas still remains strong. Above all else, they must make their move in order to protect Ri. The scene later shifts to Rosino speaking about the upcoming crowning ceremony. He casually remarks that the crown prince is essentially throwing an extravagant birthday celebration for himself, and sarcastically comments that it must be pleasant to have so much free time. Even so, Rosino admits that he is relieved. Fëanor managed to remain calm and civil because he feared Fëanor might lose his temper in front of his grace after being away for so long. Fëanor questions what he means by that remark, causing Rosino to awkwardly claim that his tongue merely slipped. Fëanor then reflects that, although he has only been gone for 4 years, an overwhelming amount of work still awaits him. Among all his responsibilities, the most urgent task is becoming closer to Ri. At that moment, Rosino hands him a parenting manual and advises him not to treat Ri the same way he treats the young masters, because she is small, precious, and fragile. Fëanor opens the manual and discovers exaggerated examples of how parents should gently reassure their children, including calling them sweet little princesses, comforting them whenever they cry, and offering them strawberry-flavored medicine with affectionate words. Reading such embarrassing advice immediately makes him think that returning to the battlefield would honestly be easier than following any of those instructions. Just then, Ri suddenly appears and calls out to him. Completely flustered, Fëanor awkwardly attempts to imitate the parenting manual and addresses her with stiff affection. Confused, Ri simply tilts her head before explaining that she wants to go somewhere together with him. He asks where she wishes to go and whether she means right at this moment. Her innocent confirmation causes him to chuckle softly as he realizes that actual parenting feels far more difficult than anything described in the manual. Shortly afterward, The two of them sit together in an awkward silence aboard a boat. Fernor repeatedly reminds himself of Rosie Note's words that Ri is small, precious, and fragile. While he struggles to think of what to say, Ri suddenly steps closer and reveals that she brought him there because she wanted to give him something. She shyly presents him with a bracelet she personally made. Surprised, Fernor asks whether she truly crafted it herself, and she proudly confirms that she did. A gentle smile appears on his face as he asks if she would place it on him herself. Ri carefully ties the bracelet around his wrist, and when he asks for her opinion, she happily tells him that it suits him very well. Watching her reaction, Fernor realizes that she finally seems far more relaxed around him than before. As the atmosphere between them softens, Fernor informs Ri that Residian will soon be returning home. Although she may not remember him clearly, he explains that Residian is her eldest brother. He then mentions that when summer arrives, the entire family can celebrate her birthday together. Those words immediately leave Ri stunned, because she has always believed that the day of her birth is not a happy occasion, but a painful tragedy. Since her mother passed away on the same day she was born, she assumes that her birthday must only remind everyone of sorrow. Hesitantly, she questions whether they truly should celebrate such a day. Fernor does not understand her concern at first, but Ri slowly explains the cruel accusations she endured throughout her childhood. People constantly blamed her for her mother's death and repeatedly told her that her mother died because she gave birth to her. Others cruelly questioned how she could continue living so normally without even realizing the horror of the day she was born. Some even claimed that simply looking at her gave them chills. Because of those endless accusations, Ri has never once received birthday gifts, tasted birthday cake, or heard anyone sincerely wish her a happy birthday. She eventually convinced herself that such happiness would never happen for her in this lifetime. As those painful memories overwhelm her, tears begin streaming down her face. Unable to bear seeing her suffer any longer, Fernor immediately pulls her into his arms and firmly tells her that her birthday is not a curse but a blessing. He assures her that the entire family eagerly awaited the day she would be born, and tells her never to think so poorly of herself again because she is his precious daughter. Riskel and Ricardo remain on the boardwalk while Riskel hides behind the bushes, staring intensely at the two figures nearby. Ricardo eventually approaches him and wonders what on earth he is doing crouched there like that. Riskel hurriedly tells him to stay quiet because Father and Ri are on a date. He cannot understand when those two even became so close, and the realization fills him with irritation. Deep down, he is incredibly jealous because he wants to ride a boat with Father as well, yet Ri stays beside him constantly like glue. What frustrates him even more is the strange urge he feels to pat Ri's hair too, which leaves Ricardo wondering who exactly Riskel is jealous of in the first place. Ricardo suggests that they should simply leave the pair alone, though he also questions why they themselves are even lurking there. At that exact moment, they overhear Ri asking Father whether he truly likes her gift, and he warmly replies that of course he does, because it came from his precious daughter. Hearing this immediately causes Ricardo to perk up, as he realizes that Ri actually gave Father a gift. He reluctantly admits that he feels a little jealous as well, since he wants a gift from Ri too. Riskel abruptly stands and declares that he is going to ask her to make him a bracelet as well, while Ricardo warns him to be careful. Unfortunately, the moment Riskel rushes forward, both he and Ricardo lose balance and tumble down, startling Ri and Father as the two boys emerge completely drenched in water. Ricardo awkwardly explains that they were merely passing by, while Riskel immediately scrambles toward Ri and asks her to make a bracelet for him too. Ricardo complains that it is unfair because Riskel asked first, and if he wants one, then he should ask for it himself. The two continue bickering until Ri stares at them in complete disbelief before bursting into laughter. She gently tells them not to fight because she will make bracelets for both of them. The brothers stare at her in surprise, and Father soon suggests that all four of them should simply make bracelets together as a family. The word family strikes deeply within Ri's heart because, in her previous life, she never dared to dream of becoming part of such warmth. She had wanted it desperately, yet always believed it was forever beyond her reach. That is why she feels overwhelmingly grateful that she has returned to the past, and she wishes to remember this precious moment for a very long time. Later, the head of the family walks through the garden. While thinking that the grounds have clearly not been maintained properly lately, he decides that he will need to summon Oberon soon and have the gardener replaced. However, his thoughts abruptly halt when he notices his son bending down to pick flowers. Even more shocking is the flower bracelet wrapped around his wrist. The sight leaves him wondering why a grown man like his son is wearing such a flimsy little bracelet in the first place. As he approaches, he casually asks whether Fernor is taking a stroll. Fernor calmly replies that it is simply a pleasant afternoon walk. Yet the head of the family cannot contain his curiosity and questions why someone as dignified as Fëanor, who has always carried himself with pride since childhood, insists on wearing something so childish. Fëanor immediately explains that Ri made it for him. He proudly reveals that she created the bracelet herself as a gift for her father, before quietly asking whether it truly looks that bad. Those words instantly strike the old man's heart. He asks again in disbelief whether Ri truly made it with her own hands. Fëanor confirms it once more, and the realization immediately throws the head of the family into complete inner turmoil. How could he possibly scold his own son for proudly wearing a bracelet that his daughter painstakingly crafted for him? The poor old man finds himself plunged into a crisis, unable to criticize the bracelet any longer despite how flimsy he originally considered it. As night falls, another figure steps forward, after being summoned by the Empress herself. The Emperor calmly remarks that Rizedan has finally arrived and mentions that she has been waiting for him. She then reveals that she recently heard interesting news regarding his family and wonders whether he has heard it as well. Rizedan quietly answers that he has not. The Empress explains that his sister's power has apparently awakened and asks whether he has considered what consequences may arise from that development. However, Rizedan remains completely unfazed and insists that nothing will happen. In his eyes, she has merely accomplished what was always expected of her from the very beginning. The Empress studies him carefully before commenting that, in that case, he must be happy at the thought of seeing his family again. Rizedan simply states that his family will undoubtedly be there. With the conversation seemingly concluded, the Empress dismisses him and reminds him that it is time for his swordsmanship lesson with Adrian. Yet just as Rizedan begins to leave, the Emperor speaks once more, reminding him never to forget that she has watched over his family for the past 4 years. Rizedan calmly replies that of course he remembers. The head of the family clears his throat before admitting that, on second thought, the bracelet is actually very pretty. He asks Ri if she would also make something with flowers for him someday, saying that he would like to have an accessory personally made by his granddaughter. His unexpected request makes Ri gulp in surprise. All this time, she has been afraid of her grandfather because he always appears strict and angry, yet now he seems a little less frightening than before. She quietly agrees to make one for him as well, and in the end, she finishes creating a flower crown. Ever since returning to the past, only good things seem to be happening to her. For the first time, she begins to wonder if perhaps she might truly be able to get along with her grandfather this time around. The peaceful atmosphere soon changes when the head of the family mentions that the party at the Imperial Palace will take place in 5 days. He then asks Fëanor when he plans to depart for the capital. Fëanor calmly replies that there is no need to rush and that he intends to leave in 3 days. Hearing this, Ri immediately begins thinking. Her father will be attending the Imperial Palace party, and the capital is a place where rumors spread quickly and important nobles gather in large numbers. She feels that she may be able to find useful clues there, something that could help her protect her family in the future. Because of that, she asks to accompany her father to the capital as well, adding that she wants to shop for a beautiful dress and make many friends. However, her grandfather firmly refuses, reminding her that according to the family rules, a child as young as her is forbidden from leaving the territory. Ri tries to explain that she would be traveling under her father's supervision, but the head of the family suddenly raises his voice and repeats his refusal harshly. Fëanor immediately tells his father that he is frightening her, causing the older man to instantly stop himself. After apologizing awkwardly, he dismisses the two of them and remains alone in silence once they leave. Not long afterward, Oberon arrives and comments that perhaps the head of the family could try being a little kinder toward Ri. The older man asks whether Oberon had been watching them, then admits that he is fully aware of how greatly he has neglected that child. Still, he insists that she must follow the same rules as everyone else, because even a single exception has the power to weaken the entire family. When he was young, his role as the future head of the family consumed every part of his life. He never had the luxury of living for himself, because every moment was spent thinking about what would benefit the family the most. His thoughts drift back to the past, to the day someone informed him that he must be Archmond. At that time, there had been a woman who looked at him boldly and remarked that he was just as gruff as the rumors claimed, adding that this was exactly how a northern duke ought to behave. When he questioned what she meant, she confidently declared that she could make him fall in love with her within 3 days. Her shameless confidence had completely stunned him, yet that very woman eventually became his wife. She had been straightforward, fearless, and utterly unlike any noble lady he had ever encountered before. She used to tease him constantly, asking whether the heavy expression he always wore was not exhausting. Although their marriage had originally been formed out of duty, he gradually realizes that his eyes are always unconsciously following her wherever she goes, despite never once revealing his feelings openly. Then winter arrives, and while his wife is pregnant with Fëanor, he is forced to leave on a long expedition to hunt magical beasts. Endless waves of monsters continue appearing, causing him to order the soldiers to strengthen the border defenses and summon distant relatives of the family for reinforcements. In the middle of the chaos, one of the guards suddenly informs him that the Duchess is in critical condition. At that moment, he abandons his duty for the very first time in his life and rides back toward the castle like a madman, choosing to become a husband before a commander. When he finally reaches her side, his wife weakly tells him that she truly believed he would never come because the family had always mattered more to him than anything else. Yet despite that, she confesses that this very quality is also what she loves about him. Through tears, she tells him that he is finally looking at her properly, and with those final words, she quietly closes her eyes after leaving Fëanor behind in his care. The price he pays for abandoning his post proves devastating. Without their commander present, the guards fall into confusion, and countless casualties occur along the border. As he watches the people despairing among the ruined lands, he learns a painful lesson. From that day onward, he convinces himself that emotions can never again interfere with his duty if he wishes to protect the family name. Since then, he has only allowed himself to make one other exception: the day Ri is born. He does not regret protecting her, yet he still believes the rules can never be broken again. Just then, a knock sounds at the door. After allowing the visitor to enter, he is surprised to see Ri standing there holding a book in her hands. She points out a rule stating that only those who have fully mastered their powers are permitted to leave the territory. Since the restriction exists merely to prevent accidents caused by uncontrolled abilities, she confidently declares that she can master her powers completely within only 3 days. Her determination instantly reminds him of his late wife. The same bold confidence, the same reckless certainty from years ago when she promised to make him fall in love within 3 days. Though he questions whether such a thing is truly possible, Ri firmly insists that she can succeed. She then asks that, if she manages to master her powers within that time, he allow her to travel to the capital. A faint smile finally appears on his face as he agrees. If she truly succeeds, then he supposes he can grant her permission. However, he adds one strict condition. Should she fail, she must never ask to leave for the capital again until she reaches adulthood. The scene then shifts to Sana, asking Ri whether she wants help learning how to use her powers properly. Ri immediately nods and explains that her grandfather promised she could travel to the capital with her father if she became skilled at controlling her abilities. Sona wonders aloud if it would not be easier for Ri to ask Fëanor for help instead, but Ri stubbornly insists that she wants to accomplish this on her own so she can surprise him later. Curious, she then asks Sona what kind of power she possesses. Sona casually replies that she guesses she has never shown her before, and in the next moment, her face begins changing shape completely. Her ability is transformation, allowing her to alter her appearance into anything she desires. The sight leaves Ri amazed, and she immediately thinks that the power is unbelievably cool. She eagerly asks how Sona first realized she had such an ability. Sona explains that, when she was younger, she loved playing pranks on other children. She constantly surprised her friends, and before she even realized it, her powers had awakened naturally. Hearing that makes Ri blink in disbelief. Sona always appears calm, elegant, and angelic to her, so imagining her as a mischievous child feels strange. Still, the explanation makes her think carefully. Powers are said to awaken according to a wielder's personality, or deepest wish. If Sona's playful nature gave birth to transformation abilities, then what exactly does that say about her own power? She already knows she can create bubbles, but does that really mean her greatest wish is simply to play with bubbles? The scene later changes to Reikl, who asks Ri whether she wants to hear how he learned to use his own power. However, after thinking for a moment, he bluntly admits that he honestly does not know, because he has naturally been skilled with his ability ever since birth. Even so, he opens a book and explains that, in order to use one's powers skillfully, a person must first learn how to properly channel mana. He asks if she can feel her own mana yet, but Ri shakes her head. Riscal then questions her about the moment her powers first awakened. Embarrassed, she recalls encountering the bear monster in the forest. Ricardo had tried to protect her and ended up in danger, and the moment she desperately wished to keep him from getting hurt, her powers awakened before she even realized it. Riscal silently thinks for a while after hearing about the monster. Then he suddenly tells her to close her eyes. Once she obeys, he instructs her to open them again. The instant she does, she sees the terrifying monster standing right in front of her. Startled, She instinctively tries to call forth her bubbles, yet nothing happens. Just as Riscal expected, a fake monster is not enough to trigger her powers. Shocked, Ri asks whether he really created such a realistic doll himself. Riscal calmly explains that her mana is flowing chaotically, almost like she has hiccups. Then, with complete bluntness, he mutters that perhaps his sister is simply an idiot. Afterward, Ri spends the entire day trying again and again to use her powers, only for the glowing bubbles to burst every single time. Desperate, she begins seeking advice from others as well. Rosinante suggests that she study several books related to mana and magic, but even that proves completely unhelpful. Gradually, Ri begins wondering whether she truly is an idiot, just like Riscal claimed. The worst part is that she does not have much time remaining before the promised 3 days are over. As evening approaches, Ricardo eventually finds her sitting alone while continuing her practice. He asks what she is doing there, and Ri immediately brightens the moment she sees him. Ricardo mentions that she had been groaning to herself for quite some time, making him think she might be sick, but she quickly denies it and explains that she has only been practicing her powers. Embarrassed, she insists that she was not groaning that loudly. Then, gently, Ricardo places her hand against his own and tells her to think of mana as though it is simply another part of her body. He encourages her to feel it slowly and naturally. As he speaks, the atmosphere around them becomes strangely peaceful. When spring arrives, the scent of flowers spreads softly through the air, and when the wind blows, hair flutters, just like nature itself is breathing. Mana exists everywhere around them, quietly flowing through all living things. Ri closes her eyes and begins sensing something moving silently deep within her heart. At that moment, she realizes what she has wanted more than anything ever since her previous life, to protect the people she loves. The instant that thought becomes clear, the bubbles around her suddenly begin glowing brilliantly once again. Even the nearby maids stop in shock as sparkling bubbles fill the area one after another. From a distance, Oberon also notices the mysterious light spreading through the mansion grounds. Meanwhile, Ri collapses onto the ground in exhaustion, wondering if she finally succeeded. Ricardo stares at the overwhelming sight in disbelief before quietly muttering that calling this success would be a massive understatement. In all his life, he has never seen anyone possess a power this overwhelmingly strong. Someone suddenly comes rushing toward Ri while repeatedly calling her name. Ri immediately recognizes that it is her grandfather. He hurriedly asks if the surge of mana he sensed came from her, and tells her not to say that she caused all of this herself. Ri honestly replies that she really did create it, although she never intended to make the bubbles grow so large. Her grandfather quickly grabs her shoulders in panic and asks if she is all right after releasing such an enormous amount of mana at once. He anxiously questions whether her head hurts or if she feels dizzy. Ri realizes that instead of scolding her, he is genuinely worried about her well-being, so she reassures him that she feels perfectly fine before shyly asking if she did a good job. Hearing that, her grandfather tells her that she did far more than well and that she has greatly exceeded all of his expectations. Ri happily asks for a hug as a reward. For a brief moment, her grandfather falls silent while memories of his late wife surface in his mind. Over the years, many of his memories of her have faded, yet this child reminds him of her so strongly. Her hopeful and innocent smile, her unwavering eyes, and even the warmth surrounding her presence. The frozen parts of his heart seem to soften all at once. At that very moment, Baron also arrives and notices that the floating bubbles are deflecting his mana. Earlier, the power Ri used had been purification, but now she is clearly using deflection. Since a single person is only supposed to possess one mana property, the coexistence of two abilities in one individual should be impossible. Baron realizes with shock that Ri may actually be a dual ability user, something that has not appeared in centuries. The scene later shifts to Ri standing outside, fully dressed and prepared for her journey. Ricardo warmly tells her to enjoy the trip and eat plenty of delicious food, while Rascal rudely tells her to just leave already and never come back. Ricardo immediately pinches Rascal and reminds him to say goodbye properly, since he was the very one who woke him up early this morning to see her off. Rascal only grumbles in annoyance before awkwardly telling her to have a safe trip. Ri smiles brightly as she thanks both of them and promises to buy gifts for them once she returns. Soon after, her grandfather approaches as well and immediately begins warning her about all the dangers of the capital. He tells her never to follow strangers even if they offer to buy her snacks, warns her not to let go of her father's hand in the crowded imperial palace, and instructs her to ignore anyone who approaches her suspiciously. He even insists that if she trips and falls even once, she must immediately call for a healer, and if a mosquito bites her, one of the family guards should deal with it instantly. Fëanor finally clears his throat and dryly comments that he will simply catch the mosquito himself before gently reminding everyone that it is already time to leave. Her grandfather reluctantly gives in and warns Fëanor that if Ri returns home with even a single scratch on her body, he will personally tear out all of his hair. Not long afterward, the carriage ride finally begins, and Ri becomes visibly excited as she gazes out the window. The capital appears incredibly lively, and her eyes widen at the sight of the enormous buildings and crowded streets filled with people. Fëanor notices her amazement and asks whether the capital seems interesting to her. Ri eagerly replies that everything looks huge and lively, before suddenly suggesting that they should buy gifts for the rest of the family and for Sona as well. However, she quickly realizes that she does not have any money with her. Fëanor calmly tells her that the youngest daughter of their house never needs to worry about something as trivial as money, and claims that if she wished for it, he could purchase every single shop on the street for her. Hearing that reminds Ri once again that their family is the wealthiest in the empire. Eventually, they arrive at a beautifully decorated gift shop run by Isha. The store is filled with all sorts of handmade accessories, scented candles, small magical tools, and elegant stationery sets. Isha warmly welcomes them and encourages them to take their time browsing through the shop before informing them that they only need to point out anything they desire. Ri politely explains that she wishes to buy gifts for her brothers as well. Isha immediately gushes over how adorable her young customer is before excitedly presenting a trendy item that has become especially popular among the young lords of the capital. She then encourages Ri to try opening it herself. The moment Ri opens the object, something suddenly pops out like a prank toy, startling her completely. The scene then cuts to someone announcing that Lord Fëanor has arrived. Fëanor steps down from the carriage, internally thinking that the man is still as extra as ever. The head of House Mosler, Duke Caden, walks forward with a bright smile, expressing his surprise that Fëanor truly came after all this time. His gaze then lands on Ri, and he immediately asks whether she is Fëanor's daughter, commenting on how adorable she is, and how she does not resemble her father at all. Caden warmly greets Ri and introduces himself as her father's longtime friend. Ri politely greets him back while silently recalling where she has heard his name before. The four great noble houses are known as the pillars supporting the Declare Empire. House Shiniarte, which specializes in medicine, House Willius, which specializes in philosophy, House Mosler, which specializes in art, and House Arachne, which specializes in combat. Realizing that Caden is the young head of one of the four major noble families, Ri immediately understands that he is an extremely important person. Caden happily explains that he and Fëanor once competed fiercely to stand at the top of their class during their academy days, and were inseparable rivals and friends. Fëanor instantly denies having any friends at all, causing Caden to laugh before saying that the two of them must be exhausted from the long journey. He states that he has already prepared rooms for them to rest in and summons a maid, instructing her to escort Ri inside and serve her the best snacks available. With a playful wink, he remarks that he needs to have an adult conversation with her father and encourages her to head inside and relax. Ri smiles brightly, understanding that they are likely about to discuss something important, so she politely says that she will see him later, while calling him Uncle Caden. The title completely shocks Caden, who dramatically complains that he is not ready to be called uncle yet because he has not even gotten married. After Ri leaves, Caden immediately asks Fëanor how he feels after finally seeing his daughter in person and whether he still feels the same way as before. Fëanor pretends not to understand what he means, but Caden refuses to let him play dumb. He reminds Fëanor of how obsessively worried he used to be about his daughter long before she was even born, recalling how Fëanor constantly cried about her eventually growing up and getting married. Irritated, Fëanor throws a cup directly at Caden and orders him to shut up, though Caden merely laughs and comments that his temper clearly has not changed at all. He then decides to stop joking around and finally move to the real matters at hand. Caden reveals that he has investigated both of the things Fëanor asked him to look into. First, he explains Residian's current situation. After Fëanor left, Residian truly entered the Imperial Palace and became the Crown Prince's swordsmanship instructor. However, according to rumors spreading through the palace, the Crown Prince constantly takes his anger out on him, and Residian is being treated terribly. Their spies secretly approached him and offered him the chance to return home, but Residian refused, insisting that he would only become a burden to his family. Caden then asks Fëanor what he intends to do about the situation, but Fëanor calmly replies that he will simply wait and observe because Residian is no longer at an age where he requires protection. Caden remarks that Fëanor is as cold as ever, comparing him to lions that push their cubs off cliffs. Fëanor immediately orders him to stop with the nonsense and continue talking. Caden then reveals the second matter. The rumors about the Emperor having another child besides the Crown Prince have been confirmed to be true. Fëanor asks whether the child is a boy, and Caden confirms that he is. The boy's mother had been a maid, but the child disappeared several years ago. Caden further explains that House Chinarte, the Empress's family, is clearly hiding something, and it is highly likely that they are secretly confining the missing child. Fëanor quietly realizes that the little rat had been hidden right beneath their noses this entire time. Caden asks whether Fëanor plans to save the child, warning him that such a move would be incredibly risky. Fëanor coldly replies that he is not running a charity, but if the child poses a threat to the imperial family, then the matter becomes entirely different. Before deciding anything, he intends to determine whether the child is a beast created by the Empress's household or merely a frightened puppy. The scene then shifts to the Empress herself. Carla calmly remarks that it has been a while as the head of House Chinarte enters before her. The Duke comments that things appear especially busy within the palace lately, and Carla replies that Adrian's crowning ceremony is being held the following day. However, she quickly shifts the discussion toward a far more important matter and asks about the progress regarding, quote, that issue. The Duke informs her that the boy has already been starved for 3 entire days, yet he continues stubbornly enduring it. Carla coldly remarks that he resembles a weed that refuses to die, though she supposes that persistence must come from his low-born commoner mother. The Duke asks why they do not simply let him starve to death already, but Carla explains that although merely seeing him disgusts her, they must keep him alive for the time being, just in case he becomes useful later. She leaves the matter entirely in the Duke's hands, remarking that he surely understands how to handle a rat far better than she does. The Duke assures her not to worry, reminding her that tomorrow is also an extremely important day for her. He confidently promises that it will not be long before they become the true rulers of the Declare Empire. Meanwhile, the scene cuts toward a small prison cell where a young boy sits in chains. Sir Ahmad enters the room carrying a small meal, mockingly informing the child that the Duke has graciously allowed him to eat, and that such food is already far more than he deserves, so he should feel grateful. The boy silently picks up the bread before carefully breaking it in half and giving a portion to his tiny pet companion. Gently, he tells the creature to eat slowly, because they have no idea when their next meal will come. Despite his own terrible condition, the boy worries more about his little companion's health, quietly asking if it is all right, while reassuring himself that he can endure this treatment because he has already become used to suffering like this. Crown Prince Adrian practically glows with excitement the moment he hears that Lord Fëanor will be attending his birthday banquet. A maid informs him that Lord Fëanor's appearance clearly suggests that House Arachne is showing its support for him, making Adrian even more thrilled. At that moment, Empress Carla arrives and asks whether he is prepared. Adrian immediately asks her for a hug, but Carla coldly refuses, questioning how much longer he intends to behave like a child. Adrian pouts and reminds her that it is his birthday today, yet Carla remains unmoved and warns him to think carefully about how others would perceive such immature behavior. She reminds him once again that he is destined to become emperor one day. Carla calmly states that the throne will indeed belong to him, but that only means he cannot afford to lower his guard even for a moment. Her gaze lingers on his striking blue eyes as she remarks that they look as beautiful as ever. Adrian proudly responds that it is because he inherited his father's eyes. Carla agrees, saying that those eyes are the symbol of the imperial family itself, and therefore he should carry pride in them. With that, she tells him that it is time for them to leave together. Meanwhile, inside another carriage, Rhi listens quietly as her father explains that the imperial family possesses signature traits just like their own ducal house, namely their golden hair and brilliant blue eyes. He warns her to avoid becoming involved with them. Curious, Rhi asks why, only for him to answer that the imperial family is simply troublesome. He further explains that the emperor will not be appearing tonight because if he were to attend, all attention would naturally shift toward him, even though the crown prince is supposed to remain the center of attention at his own birthday banquet. However, Fëanor calmly notes that things never go according to plan, and sooner or later she will notice a blonde woman trailing behind the crown prince, like goldfish poop, referring to the empress herself. Beside her, she will also see Rhysitian. Rhi silently recalls that in her previous life, her eldest brother had stayed within the imperial palace for so long that she never once had the chance to properly meet him. Rumors had spread claiming that he defected to the imperial family's side, while others insisted he no longer belonged to House Arachne at all. Deep down, she wonders whether he will finally be able to return to them this time around. Sensing her unease, Fëanor gently pats her head and reassures her that she must simply be nervous about meeting her brother, adding that the adults will handle everything themselves. Ri obediently answers that she understands, though she alone carries the burden of knowing the future. Slowly, the warmth of her father's arm makes her drowsy, and she thinks that perhaps taking a short nap would not hurt. At the same time, Fëanor silently thinks that, for now, it is better for her not to know anything, because, in the end, she is still only a child. At the banquet hall, whispers spread rapidly among the nobles. The moment news of Lord Fëanor's arrival circulates through the crowd. Many express shock that he has suddenly decided to appear after avoiding social events for years. Some gossip that he fell out of Duke Arachne's favor and was exiled to the borderlands, while others speculate that he must have finally reconciled with his father. Residian overhears every word and inwardly scoffs at their ignorance, thinking that they know absolutely nothing despite talking so confidently. Another noble quietly brings up the rumor surrounding Fëanor's secret daughter, the child his late wife supposedly gave birth to before her death. Others question why a child born under such miraculous circumstances would ever be hidden away, unless there was some issue with her bloodline. Just then, an announcement echoes through the grand hall, declaring the arrival of Lord Fëanor and Lady Ri. Every gaze immediately shifts toward them as Fëanor steps forward while carrying the sleeping Ri in his arms. Murmurs instantly fill the room once again as people stare at the child's appearance and admit that there is clearly nothing questionable about her bloodline. Her eyes alone unmistakably prove that she is a child of House Arachne. Ri slowly wakes up and blinks sleepily, while her father softly asks whether she is awake. She quietly admits that she must have accidentally fallen asleep. Fëanor gently tells her that she may continue sleeping a little longer if she wishes. The surrounding nobles nearly choke on their shock, wondering whether they are imagining things because Lord Fëanor, the terrifying and cold noble everyone fears, has just smiled. At that moment, Cardan also approaches them and teasingly asks Ri whether she enjoyed her nap. Ri innocently explains that her father promised to wake her if she fell asleep. Cardan dramatically responds that all adults are liars, and that it is unfortunate she had to learn the harsh truth about the world so quickly. Fëanor instantly glares at him and orders him to stop teaching strange things to his daughter. Cardan merely laughs and points out that everyone present is already staring at them anyway, so they should simply get used to it. He then turns toward Ri and warns her not to reveal even the slightest weakness, because if she lowers her guard, the wicked nobles surrounding them will immediately devour her alive. Hearing this, Ri quietly thinks that handsome Uncle Cardan is absolutely right. If she truly wishes to protect her family this time, then she must remain alert at all times. Fëanor pinches her cheek and reminds her not to worry about anything, because everyone in the Empire already knows that House Arachne is not a family anyone dares to trifle with. Cardan agrees proudly, declaring that their house is undeniably the strongest among all 4 ducal families. He then impatiently wonders when the Crown Prince plans to finally arrive, joking that Adrian will probably become furious once he realizes someone else has already stolen the spotlight at his own birthday banquet. Curious, Ri asks what kind of person the Crown Prince is. Cardan casually describes Adrian as a lucky boy who does not understand his own place, leaving Ri confused by the remark. Before she can ask further, Fëanor calmly announces that the lucky boy has finally arrived. At last, Empress Carla and Crown Prince Adrian make their grand entrance into the banquet hall. Adrian is a crown prince with no noticeable talent. His swordsmanship, magic, and academic abilities are all painfully average. He holds his position not because of merit, but solely because of his bloodline. He is a fortunate child born into an environment without competitors capable of threatening his place. The Empress understands better than anyone that her son is unfit to become emperor. Even so, she still needs him to remain the crown prince, so she handles everything on his behalf, while keeping a constant watch over every noble house that could potentially threaten the imperial family. Naturally, House Arachne is included among those families. Carla briefly glances at Fëanor before deliberately walking past him without uttering a single word. Ri immediately notices the gesture and realizes that Carla intentionally ignores her father in order to show everyone present that House Arachne means nothing to her. Soon after, Carla steps onto the podium and formally addresses the gathered nobles, thanking the honored guests for attending the Crown Prince's 8th birthday celebration. She announces that Adrian has now officially been declared Crown Prince and future ruler of the Empire, before inviting everyone to enjoy the grand banquet to their heart's content. Meanwhile, numerous nobles quickly gather around Ri, drawing her attention. She instantly recalls Uncle Cardan's warning about the nobles she would encounter here, yet to her surprise, the people surrounding her only smile warmly. They comment on how adorable she is and express their shock that Fëanor possesses such a lovely daughter. Others caution the crowd not to hover too closely and frighten the child. while some point out that her eyes resemble her father's exactly. Several nobles mention that their own daughters recently entered the academy and insist that the girls will surely have much in common with one another. At the same time, Adrian watches the entire scene with growing irritation. This is supposed to be his celebration, yet everyone's attention drifts toward Ri instead of him. Carla quietly leans toward him and reminds him that all the distinguished guests gathered here to congratulate him, so he should reclaim the center stage. She suggests that if he dances with the child, the attention of the nobles will naturally return to him. Adrian immediately agrees before approaching Ri and arrogantly declaring that he will grant her the honor of dancing with the future emperor. He extends the invitation without even considering whether she desires it or not. Ri instinctively begins searching the room for her father, but Adrian quickly questions what she is waiting for, making it clear that refusing the crown prince's request is not an option. As he forcefully grabs her hand, pain flashes across Ri's face, and she demands that he let go because he is hurting her. Before the situation can worsen further, another hand suddenly seizes Adrian's wrist. It is Risideon. He calmly asks Adrian to refrain from making such rude requests. Ri instantly recognizes him, while Adrian explodes in fury over the interruption. Carla immediately whispers into Adrian's ear, reminding him that the other noble. She then turns toward Reborn and orders him to accompany her somewhere quieter so they may continue the discussion privately. As they walk away, Ri remains standing there in silence, unable to tear her gaze away from Reborn. She realizes that he deliberately stepped forward to save her, and it becomes increasingly obvious to her that Reborn is not willingly obeying the Empress. Once inside the palace corridors, Adrian's temper completely erupts. He violently slaps Reborn across the face for humiliating him in front of everyone, while Reborn merely lowers his head and apologizes without resistance. Adrian cruelly mocks the youngest daughter of House Arachne, repeating rumors that claim she is defective and incapable of properly using her powers. He questions what Fëanor hopes to achieve by bringing such a child here, accusing him of trying to gain pity from others. The moment those words leave Adrian's mouth, Reborn raises his eyes sharply and demands that he take them back. Adrian sneers at him, declaring that a mere dog has no right to order him around. He continues striking Reborn, while boasting that his mother promised him that once his divine power fully awakens, House Arachne will stand no chance against him. He arrogantly claims that when Reborn family eventually falls into ruin, Reborn will have nowhere left to go and will feel grateful for the imperial family's mercy. Carla finally intervenes, reminding Adrian that today is an important occasion and ordering him to stop. She coldly informs Reborn that he still has not learned his place before commanding him to wait in the basement until the banquet ends. Suddenly, a sharp voice cuts through the room. Fëanor has arrived. Carla immediately turns toward him in shock, while Ri rushes toward Reborn and anxiously checks whether he is all right. Adrian furiously demands to know how Fëanor dares enter the imperial family's private quarters without permission, but Fëanor calmly replies that Adrian is the one behaving disgracefully. He coldly states that Adrian is clearly using violence under the excuse of discipline. Carla attempts to justify the situation by explaining that Reborn currently resides in the palace as the crown prince's sword instructor, meaning he must follow the imperial family's rules rather than those of House Arachne. Even Reborn quietly agrees with her statement. Fëanor stares directly at Carla before warning her not to assume the throne already belongs to her son. He reminds her that Adrian has not yet become emperor, and until that day truly arrives, nothing is guaranteed. This causes Carla to smirk faintly. She had initially believed that he cared little about the upbringing of his children, yet she now realizes that assumption may have been wrong. It becomes clear to her that he treasures his family far more deeply than she expected. Deciding that he deserves time alone with them, she grants him the opportunity to speak with his family in peace. She also informs Reborn that he may accompany them as well. Before they part, Carla turns her attention toward Ri and remarks that her hair possesses a beautiful color, unlike the typical Arachne. The shade reminds her greatly of Ri's mother, leaving Ri startled by the realization that the Empress appears to have known her mother personally. Soon afterward, the scene shifts to Fëanor confronting Reborn and questioning why he still remains at the palace now that Ri's powers have awakened and he is finally able to return home. However, Reborn believes he no longer has the right to return to the family. Although his service to the Empress is part of the reason, there is something far greater weighing upon him. Before departing for the border long ago, he had been entrusted with the responsibility of protecting his siblings. At the time, he became convinced that the only way to uphold that promise was to serve the imperial family, whose divine power was so overwhelming that even powerful houses could not oppose it directly. Through that immense power, the great orders of the world became bound together and balance was preserved. Yet over the years, the influence of the imperial family gradually weakened, and rumors spread that the current emperor possessed very little divine power. Everything changed 8 years ago when an oracle was delivered on the eve of the crown prince's birth, proclaiming that the goddess would send her child into the world so that everything could return to its rightful order. Ever since that prophecy, the crown prince has been viewed not merely as a fortunate royal child, but as a being destined for something far greater. Residian understands that once the crown prince's divine power fully awakens, the empress will likely target their family first. Because of this, he resolves to remain within the imperial palace and become the shield protecting his household, even if it means he can never return home. Meanwhile, Ri rides beside her father inside the carriage and quietly wonders whether Residian truly intends to remain behind instead of returning with them. Her father gently reassures her that his son's return has merely been delayed and promises that when summer arrives, their entire family will celebrate her birthday together. He swears upon his very heart that he will fulfill that promise no matter what, yet Ri cannot help urging him not to risk his life simply to make such a reunion happen. Deep inside, she remains troubled because the truth behind her family's eventual downfall is still unknown. She does not know whether the imperial family is responsible, whether Residian himself is somehow connected, or whether an entirely different force lies behind it all. Countless unresolved problems continue to surround them, and Ri painfully realizes how small and powerless she still is when it comes to protecting the people she loves. Later, after returning to Garden House, her father encourages her to rest and informs her that his room is directly beside hers so she may call for him whenever necessary. Late into the night, while Ri is sleeping peacefully, she suddenly hears a faint voice pleading for help. Startled awake, she immediately wonders whether the voice belongs to her father. However, when she looks around, no one appears to be there, causing her to question whether she merely imagined it. Moments later, the mysterious voice calls out to her again, insisting that it is nearby and urging her to come outside. At that point, Ri becomes certain that the voice is real. Although her grandfather had warned her never to follow strangers, she reasons that stepping outside alone for a brief moment should not be dangerous. A few hours earlier, the scene unfolds within the prison located at the Chinarte residence. A young boy sits quietly inside his cell while whispering softly to himself. Nearby guards casually discuss how all the higher-ranking nobles are currently attending the Crown Prince's birthday celebration, making the day unusually quiet and easy for those left behind. Upon hearing this, the boy realizes that if today is the Crown Prince's birthday celebration, then yesterday must have been his own birthday. Unlike the Crown Prince, whose celebrations are always grand and magnificent, his own birthday passes unnoticed and forgotten. Not long afterward, CC finally appears before him, causing the boy to ask where he has been because he had been genuinely worried. In response, CC approaches him carrying a key. The boy quickly notices it and wonders whether CC was the one who brought it there. CC happily wags his tail in response, making the boy realize that this may be the only opportunity he will ever have to escape from the prison. On the other hand, Ri wanders through the dark streets while glancing nervously from side to side. Although she can no longer hear the mysterious voice, she remains certain that it originally came from this direction. Just as she begins doubting herself, the voice suddenly calls out once again, this time telling her that it is nearby. Without hesitation, she rushes toward the source while wondering who could possibly be calling for help at such a late hour. Eventually, she finally spots a small figure in the distance. At first glance, she cannot tell whether the creature beside him is a fox or a cat. Meanwhile, the young boy immediately scolds CC, reminding him that he was supposed to stay and wait instead of rushing off on his own. Ri stares at the stranger in surprise as she realizes he is only a little boy. The boy quickly asks whether she is all right and apologizes because CC suddenly jumped toward her. He becomes concerned that she might have been hurt, but Ri reassures him that she is perfectly fine. Moments later, CC begins affectionately licking her, causing the boy to explain that CC seems to have taken a liking to her since he normally refuses to reveal himself to strangers. Curious, Ri asks whether the fox's name is truly CC before introducing herself as Ri and asking for the boy's name in return. He quietly reveals that his name is Esiard. When she asks about his family name, however, he admits that he does not have one. Hearing this causes Ri to carefully observe his appearance. His blonde hair and blue eyes immediately remind her of the imperial family, making her heart pound uneasily. At the same time, she notices how frightened he appears. The way he instinctively shrinks back, as though expecting to be hurt at any moment, painfully reminds her of her own past self. Wanting to calm him, she gently explains that she never intended to harm him and tells him not to worry. However, Esiard suddenly flinches and begs her not to come any closer. He quickly apologizes for raising his voice before abruptly turning around and running away, insisting that he has to leave immediately. Ri desperately calls for him to wait, yet she can only watch helplessly as he disappears into the darkness. Although she truly wants to help him, he vanishes before she can do anything more. Elsewhere, the Duke is consumed by rage as he furiously demands to know how the boy managed to disappear. He cannot understand how trained guards could allow a single child to escape from under their watch, and angrily questions whether they all possess a death wish. Gritting his teeth in frustration, he realizes the severity of the situation. Nobles from every corner of the country are currently gathered in the capital for the Crown Prince's ceremony, and if even one of them were to discover the boy's existence, it would lead to complete disaster. Determined to prevent that outcome, he immediately orders the guards to search the surrounding area without delay. The boy could not have gone far, and under no circumstances must anyone else discover him. Most importantly, the Duke commands them to bring Esiard back alive. Meanwhile, Esiard nervously looks around to confirm that Ri did not follow him. Relieved, he quietly thanks goodness because he refuses to drag her into his problems. He gently assures Cece that everything will be all right, and promises that he will protect him somehow. However, his brief moment of relief is shattered when the guards suddenly locate him. They loudly announce that they found the blonde boy and immediately begin chasing after him. Panicked, Esiard runs as fast as he can, while the guards shout for one another to block every possible escape route. Terror overwhelms him, as he realizes that if they capture him again, he will be dragged back to that horrific prison where sunlight never reaches and freedom does not exist. He desperately continues running until he suddenly notices a steep cliff directly ahead of him. With nowhere left to escape, the guards begin surrounding him, while reminding one another that the Duke specifically ordered them to bring the child back alive. Trembling in fear, Esiard warns them not to come any closer. Yet, in the very next moment, he loses his footing and falls from the cliff. As Esiard plummets downward, a strange sense of resignation fills his heart. Part of him begins to believe that perhaps this outcome is for the best after all. Countless painful memories flash through his mind one after another. He remembers his mother softly telling him to wait because she would return soon. He remembers Carla coldly remarking that he should feel grateful they accepted such a quiet and obedient child into their care. He remembers the loneliness, fear, and suffering that have constantly followed him throughout his life. Then his thoughts drift towards Cece, the one companion who stayed beside him through everything. In that moment, Esiard convinces himself that if everything ends here, he will no longer need to run away, live in fear, or suffer any more pain. However, just as despair completely overtakes him, mysterious soap bubbles suddenly begin appearing around his body. The bubbles spread through the area and release a strange effect that causes all of the pursuing guards to become dizzy before collapsing unconscious onto the ground. Esiard's eyes widen in shock as he realizes that the floating spheres surrounding him are actually soap bubbles. Before he can fully comprehend what is happening, his body gently rises into the air inside one of them. At that exact moment, Ri finally catches up to the scene and breathlessly exclaims that she barely managed to reach him in time. Relieved to